Hi guys, welcome to this episode of Castros. In this channel, we focus on both solved and unsolved cases about the worst human beings in Kenya and beyond. So if this looks like your kind of thing, please feel free to subscribe and don't forget to turn on notification so that you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, on to our first case of the week. On Monday, the 17th of November 2016, Mr. Solomon Mwangi Mbuthia, the principal of Kiiru Boys High School, was expected to pick up national examination papers at the county educational offices at around 5 a.m. Now, when he did not show up, a series of phone calls were made with regard to his whereabouts. When the Ministry of Education officials failed to trace him, a decision was made to call his wife, Jane Muthoni Mushiru, with regard to the principal's whereabouts. The police immediately conducted an intense search of the now school missing principal. On the morning of the 11th of November 2016, a coffee worker was going about his duties when he noticed a strange gunny bag lying in one of the coffee bushes. Feeling suspicious, the coffee farmer immediately alerted the police, and when the police arrived at the scene, a grim discovery was made. The sack contained the body of an unidentified man. The body was at an advanced stage of decomposition, and a sisal rope was still tied around the neck of the body. The body was taken to the medical examiner's office for further investigations. It was later determined that the body was that of the missing principal, Mr. Solomon Mbuthia Mwangi. The medical examiner ruled that the deceased died as a result of asphyxiation due to strangulation. Now, it didn't take long for investigators to get leads, and Jane Muthoni was quickly listed as a person of interest. The deceased and Jane Muthoni were married, but they lived in separate towns due to the nature of their work. The two were teachers, and the deceased had just been promoted as a principal and later posted in a different town with his wife. Now, you see, Jane Muthoni had long suspected her husband of being unfaithful with a local lady known as MWK. MWK was a lady who operated a shop near the school. It was established that Jane Muthoni had enlisted the services of one Joseph Kariuki Njuguna and Nelson Jiru to have MWK eliminated, but Jane Muthoni later changed her mind and instead instructed the killers to eliminate her husband. The trio were immediately charged with first-degree murder, but Joseph Kariuki took a plea bargain with the prosecution, and in exchange for testifying against Jane Muthoni and Nelson Jiru, the prosecution reduced his charge to manslaughter. Joseph stated that plans to murder the deceased started at an earlier date, by Jane Muthoni meeting the two hitmen at Treeshed Hotel, where a down payment of roughly $1,000 was made to the hitmen. Joseph went ahead and told the court that on the 4th of November 2016, the day of the murder, Jane Muthoni and the two hitmen met at Texas Bar, where she outlined her devious plan to the two. It was agreed that Jane Muthoni would sneak the two hitmen at Kiiru Boys High School using her vehicle, which had tinted windows. Jane Muthoni will then lace the deceased's drink with a sedative, and the two hitmen would later come into the house to quote-unquote finish the job. The first plan of Muthoni's plan went well. However, 2 hours later, Jane Muthoni emerged from the deceased's house and informed the two that the second part of the plan was not working as was earlier on intended. The drugs were not producing the desired effect that Jane Muthoni had initially intended. At around 2 a.m., Jane Muthoni drove the two hitmen back to town, obviously disappointed that her plan had not worked as she had earlier on wanted. The following day, Muthoni called the two hitmen and plans were quickly hatched to strangle the deceased in a coffee plantation where the body will be disposed of and hopefully never traced. Muthoni picked the deceased from school under the pretext that the two hitmen were real estate agents who were desirous of disposing of a land that Muthoni was interested in purchasing. The four of them later drove towards Karakuta Coffee Farm Estate, where the two hitmen suddenly pounced into action and started strangling the deceased with a sisal rope. Solomon put up a spirited fight, but he could not match the two hitmen. After his body went limp, the two hitmen went to dispose of the body far off into the plantation. Nelson swapped the deceased's shoes with his gumboots, and the two started walking towards where Muthoni had parked her vehicle. Now, when they arrived where the vehicle was parked, they could not trace the vehicle nor Muthoni. They wandered around until they later realized that Jane Muthoni had sped off and abandoned the two. The duo then decided to walk to town, and then each went their separate ways. Their attempts to later get a hold of Muthoni were fruitless as her phone was switched off. Muthoni still owed the two hitmen approximately 200,000 Kenyan shillings or 2,000 US dollars. During the hearing, the prosecution lined up several witnesses, including the mistress and the peddler who sold Muthoni the sedative drug. Forensic examination was done on Jane Muthoni's phone, and it was established that Muthoni had sent several threatening messages to MKW. Muthoni took the stand in her defense and painted a picture of a happy and perfect marriage. She sobbed uncontrollably and pleaded with the judge to ensure that her husband's killers were brought to book. Now, in the end, Muthoni was found guilty of first-degree murder, and she was subsequently sentenced to serve 30 years in prison without the possibility of parole. So that's gonna do it, guys. If you found the content of this video interesting, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. Also, don't forget to turn on notification so that you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.